In the Autumn Star High School, when the wind blows through the campus, it always brings a little bit of joy in the familiar plastic track smell on the playground. Lin Xiaofan was carrying a torn shoulder bag and wearing a slightly white school uniform, and walked in from the school gate with his head down. They are not tall, their faces are ordinary, and they don't look at them if they throw them into the crowd. But if you look at his eyes carefully, you will find that there is a trace of unclear wisdom hidden there, as if you were observing something, or as if you were covering something. Xiaofan. Wait for me. A crisp sound came from behind. Lin Xiaofan walked a step and turned to see Su Ruoqing trotting over. She was wearing a clean and neat school uniform, and she was running and swaying, with a handsome and slight smile on her face. Su Ruoqing is the kind of person who can attract attention wherever she goes. She is not only beautiful, but also good at success, but also a student association, and a true campus win figure. She and Lin Xiaofan are childhood sweethearts and have grown up together since childhood. Although their personalities are very different, they are not related. I'm so anxious to run, Miss Su, no one will give you breakfast. Lin Xiaofan talked, his words were so gentle. He took out a hot bun from his bag and passed it over. Here, I saw that you didn't eat it in the morning, so I left it for you. Su Ruoqing took the bun, her eyes lit up, and after taking a bite, she said vaguely, you still understand me. But don't always save yourself from not eating, it's like a bamboo pole. She patted Lin Xiaofan's shoulder, and the strength was quite strong, which made him stagger. Okay, I'm fine. Lin Xiaofan smiled and slammed his head, and the two of them walked towards the teaching building on their shoulders. On the way, many classmates greeted Su Ruoqing, and she responded enthusiastically, while Lin Xiaofan followed silently, like an inconspicuous shadow. He became accustomed to this kind of lowliness and treated all the light to others. After all, he never wanted to let people know that he was not simple. Xinghui High School is the top-notch school in this city. Not only does it have a strong academic atmosphere, but it also has many social activities and competitions that are dazzling. The students here must be bullies, talented people, and have a background at home. In short, no one is ordinary people. Lin Xiaofan looks like the most inconspicuous ordinary person. He has become a middle-class player and is in average sports. He has never participated in any group and has no special love. But only he himself knew that he was doing it on purpose. He doesn't want to attract attention because once someone discovers his true abilities, troubles will follow. The morning class was mathematics. The teacher on the lecture stage was talking about an academic topic. Some of the classmates below listened carefully, while others secretly left behind. Lin Xiaofan looked at the course book with his head down, and the pen in his hand was casually redirected, as if he was not listening to the course. But his eyes swept over the questions on the blackboard and had already calculated the answer in his mind. Not only the correct answer, but even the 3 different solutions were clear. He glanced at Su Ruoqing next to him. She was writing painting on the draft paper with her eyebrows, and it was obviously difficult to get stuck in this question. Hey, Xiaofan, do you have his question? Su Ruoqing asked in a low voice, with a little helpless voice. Lin Xiaofan took a look at the topic in a model and then slammed the head. I don't know much, why don't you ask the front row tycoons? Su Ruoqing sighed and stopped asking. She had long been ill with Lin Xiaofan's attitude of nothing can happen. Although she occasionally felt strange in her heart, this guy obviously didn't look stupid. Why did he always behave in a bad way? But she didn't think much about it. In her eyes, Lin Xiaofan was the guy who was very strife from childhood to adulthood. His style was plainness. After the next class, the classroom is always hot. Su Ruoqing packed up her things and turned her head to Lin Xiaofan. There is an international basketball game in the afternoon. Do you go and watch it? I heard that the other school is quite strong, and our school team has a lot of pressure. Lin Xiaofan was very proud. I won't go anymore. I have to go to the library and add books in the afternoon. Go to the library again? Are you too familiar with that weird old man? Su Ruoqing rolled her eyes. The weird old man mentioned was Lao Chen, the administrator of the library. An old man who was always wearing gray clothes and full of impatient faces, had a very strange temper, and the students all avoided him. But for some reason, Lin Xiaofan just talked to this old man very much and often went to the bookstore to organize books and other things. Old Chen is pretty good, but he just doesn't say anything. Lin Xiaofan smiled, not explaining much. He knew that Su Ruoqing didn't like Lao Chen, mainly because she went to the library to borrow books. As a result, Lao Chen was snared for a long time, saying, young people should read more books and don't always think about playing. She was so angry that she didn't want to step into the library for several days. Follow you, I'll go see it myself if you don't go. Su Ruoqing curled her lips, put on her bag and left. Lin Xiaofan looked at her back, and a complex emotion flashed in his eyes. It's not that he doesn't want to accompany her, but that there are some things he has to do alone. In the afternoon, the library was so quiet that it could hear the sound outside the window. Old Chen sat behind the cabinet, looking through a broken book, seeing Lin Xiaofan coming in, raised his eyelids, and hummed, "Are you coming again? You're almost flipping through the bookshelf. Chen, you are not right. I love learning, you have to show my praise." Lin Xiaofan walked over with a smile, took out a few books from his bag and put them on the cabinet. "If you have the books, please borrow a few more books." Old Chen glanced at the book name, his eyes changed slightly, but he quickly returned to his impatient appearance. "Choose it just by chance. Anyway, your kid's vision of choosing books is much stronger than those self-righteous domineering masters." Lin Xiaofan didn't answer the conversation and walked straight to the bookshelves deep in the library. There are some ancient books that are rarely borrowed by people. The covers are yellow and there is a smell of old paper. He pulled out a book at his own finger, flipped through several pages, and his eyes couldn't help but narrowed. What is recorded on the book page is not ordinary historical stories, but some of the Almighty Trials saying is one of the oldest secrets of Xinghui High School, and only a few people know it. Although he had heard some news a long time ago, when he saw these words, he couldn't help but feel shocked. "Boy, what do you think of these fucking?" Old Chen's voice suddenly rose from behind. Lin Xiaofan was shocked and almost dropped the book on the ground. He turned around and saw that the old man was standing behind him at some point, his eyes as if he wanted to see through him. "It's nothing, it's just curiosity." Lin Xiaofan put it on and put it back on the bookshelf. "Chen, why didn't you hear me walking? I'm so scared." Old Chen snorted coldly and said unhappily, "Stop fighting with me, you are not simple, I've seen this long ago. You shouldn't touch these books. If you hear me, don't fold and go in." Lin Xiaofan's heart skipped a beat, but on the surface he still smiled and pointed, "Okay, I'll just listen to you, I won't just look at it." Chen stared at him for a while, and without saying anything, he turned back to the cabinet. Lin Xiaofan looked at his back and his eyes sank. He knew that Chen Jin was not an ordinary library administrator, and this old man knew more than he had shown. And the Almighty Trial mentioned in that book seems to have a connection with the secrets that they hide. In the evening, a sudden sensation came from the campus. When Lin Xiaofan came out of the library, he heard screams and shocks coming from the direction of the operation site. He glanced at his eyebrows and walked over quickly. He found that there were a lot of people around the basketball court, and Su Ruoqing was also among them, with her face a little pale. "What's wrong?" Lin Xiaofan rushed into the crowd, grabbed Su Ruoqing's arm and asked. When the school team competition, Zhang Haoyan and his men had a conflict with the other school. Now they are fighting. Su Ruoqing was so anxious that she was full of worry. Zhang Haoyan is the main force of the school team and is also the top tycoon and sportsman recognized by the school. He is so arrogant that he has always been inconspicuous students like Lin Xiaofan. Lin Xiaofan looked over with her eyes and saw that Zhang Haoyan and several school members were pushing and shoving with people from the other school. The scene was in a mess. Some of the students around him were struggling and some were rising, and no one could control the situation. Zhang Haoyan's face was already covered with color, but his eyes were still so sluggish, and he was still picking the other person in his mouth. "Xiaofan, we have to think of ways, we can't let them fight." Su Ruoqing grabbed Lin Xiaofan's sleeve, obviously trying to help him. Lin Xiaofan was silent for a while, his eyes swept over the situation on the scene, and his heart quickly calculated. He didn't want to be in trouble at first, but seeing Su Ruoqing's anxious look and the situation on the scene was getting more and more out of control, he knew that he could no longer stand by. "Ruoqing, please step back and don't be injured," he said in a low voice, then walked towards the center of the crowd. His pace seemed unhappy, but each step was as stable as if he was calculating something. Zhang Haoyan noticed that he came over and showed a disdainful sneer on his face. "Yi, Lin Xiaofan? Why are you here to fight? Are you looking for a fight?" Lin Xiaofan ignored him and walked straight to the middle of the two people. His voice was not loud and he was unusually clear. "Stop it. If this matter is too big, it will not be good for anyone. It's all about you. Go ahead." A teammate beside Zhang Haoyan shouted impatiently and reached out to push Lin Xiaofan. But before his hand touched Lin Xiaofan, the other party hid from the side, and his movements were so fast that it was almost impossible to see clearly. "Say it again, stop." Lin Xiaofan's words were calm, but there was a sense of pressure in his eyes that made people dare not look directly. Zhang Haoyan was stunned for a moment. Although he was dissatisfied, he felt a little palpitations inexplicably. The people from the other school also stopped, and the atmosphere on the scene suddenly became a little uneven. At this moment, a ball suddenly flew over from the side, directly slamming Lin Xiaofan's back spoon. It was a teammate of Zhang Haoyan who took advantage of the situation. It was quite powerful and had a clear sense of pickiness. Su Ruoqing was shocked. "Be careful." But Lin Xiaofan seemed to have his eyes widened, and he didn't look back. He raised his hand and accurately caught the ball with his palm. The whole movement was like a long time ago, and everything seemed to have been expected. He turned around and looked at the person throwing the ball, his mouth slightly slapped, revealing a meaningful smile. "Do you want to play?" he said lightly, then his wrist shook and the ball flew out at a sloppy angle, smashing directly into the basket far away, making a crisp bang. The whole scene was quiet for a moment, and everyone's eyes widened, as if they had seen a ghost. Su Ruoqing covered her mouth, her face full of disbelief. Zhang Haoyan's face turned dark and his eyes flashed for the first time. He never thought that this usually inconspicuous Lin Xiaofan could have such strength. Lin Xiaofan clapped his hands, as if nothing had happened just now, and turned to Su Ruoqing. "Let's go, there's nothing good to look at." Su Ruoqing stared blankly and followed him and left the basketball court. Her brain was full of that scene, and a ridiculous thought suddenly appeared in her heart. What is this guy who has been ordinary from childhood to adulthood? Far away, Chen stood by the window of the library, looking at everything through the glass, with a meaningful smile on his face. He murmured in a low voice, "Boy, you can't hide it anymore. The days of trying to do it are no longer far." Lin Xiaofan walked on the campus path, feeling the astonishing gaze behind him, and his heart was uneasy. He knew that this time today had completely broken his low-key life. Zhang Haoyan's enemies will only be stronger, and Lao Chen's unspeakable words also made him feel uneasy. More importantly, he knew in his heart that the All test mentioned in the ancient book seemed to be approaching him step by step. "Xifan, how did you do that just now?" Su Ruoqing couldn't help but ask. Her language was full of curiosity. Lin Xiaofan stopped walking, turned to look at her, and smiled. "You are so lucky, you're throwing it away." Su Ruoqing didn't believe it, but looking at his unwillingness to say more, she didn't ask any more. She just followed him silently, making up her mind. No matter what secret this guy was hiding, she had to figure it out. As the sun sets, the campus of Xinghui High School is dyed into gold. Lin Xiaofan looked at the teaching building far away, his eyes gradually becoming deeper. He knew that from today on, the story belonging to him would probably never be calm again. The rest of the world in Xi'an is in the campus of Xinghui High School, and the shadows of the trees on the field are pulled to the top. Lin Xiaofan and Su Ruoqing walked shoulder to shoulder on the path, and the air was still filled with the intense atmosphere of the play that had just been painted on the ball. Su Ruoqing glanced at him at the moment, and wanted to speak but stopped. It was obvious that his heart was still experiencing the magical throwing basket. Lin Xiaofan was calm and had both hands in his pockets, as if nothing had happened. Hey, were you really not going to tell me? Watching finally couldn't help it. She stopped her pace, stared at him with her hands on her hips, and had a little temper in her temperament. How did you throw that ball in? Don't tell me anything about good luck, I'm not a fool. Lin Xiaofan stepped a step, looked at her, and a helpless smile came out of the corner of his mouth. Watching, you're thinking too much, it's really a good touch in blindfolded. Can you still expect me to play the main force in the school team? Watching curled her lips, obviously not taking this trick, but she also knew that Lin Xiaofan was as stubborn as a stone head. If she continued to ask, she would probably not be able to ask anything. She snorted and muttered, okay, if you hide it, I will understand it sooner or later. Lin Xiaofan didn't answer, but just lowered his head and smiled and continued to walk forward. He knew in his heart that this incident was a piercing a little hoarse, and that guy Zhang Haoyan would definitely not be willing to let go. However, he was not afraid. After all, he had been hiding for so long and had already prepared the psychological preparation for being dug out. However, he didn't want Watching to come in. It would be better to bear some things by himself. In the next few days, there were more discussions about Lin Xiaofan in the campus. Some people said that he had pure sports at the basketball court, and some people began to wonder if this guy was deliberately low-key. Zhang Haoyan even made a speech, saying that he wanted to find an opportunity to teach Lin Xiaofan, so that he could know what it means to have heaven beyond heaven. Lin Xiaofan just smiled when he heard these rumors. He should go to the library to help Chen organize his books or take photos without mistakes. At noon that day, there was a lot of people in the cafeteria. Lin Xiaofan took the dining table and sat down in a corner. He was about to take 2 bites, and then he heard a burst of laughter coming from nowhere. He looked up and saw Zhang Haoyan walking over with several school teams of brothers, with a provocative smile on his face. Yeah, isn't this our battle genius? Zhang Haoyan stopped at his desk, his lingering mockery. Why, are you hiding here and eating, afraid of being recognized? Lin Xiaofan didn't even raise his head, lowered his head and said slowly, Student Zhang, if you have something to say, I still have to go and have nothing to do. Zhang Haoyan's face darkened, and he obviously didn't expect Lin Xiaofan to be so embarrassed. He sneered and slapped the table. Okay, hard. I heard that there will be an academic competition on campus next week, and the science group's topics are extremely difficult, and I have to spend some time. Wouldn't you not dare to register as an all-rounder like you? Lin Xiaofan finally raised his head and looked at him, his eyes so calm that it made people feel angry. It's just a matter of registration. If you want to compare, you will be with him anytime. As soon as this came out, all the students who were watching the hottest were blown up. Everyone knows that Zhang Haoyan is a recognized top student in the school, and almost no one can win the science achievement. Now, Lin Xiaofan's words are clearly positive. Zhang Haoyan gritted his teeth, his face turned blue, but he still put on a firm and said, okay, let's go and see. After saying that, he turned away with the man, leaving behind a bunch of private voices in the cafeteria. Lin Xiaofan lowered his head and continued to eat, but his heart was not as calm as it seemed. He didn't want to participate in these broken things, but Zhang Haoyan and other guys were really troublesome when they repeatedly raised trouble. In addition, Chen has always mentioned all-round trials recently, and he believes that these challenges in campuses may just be the beginning of a larger test. That afternoon, he went to the library as usual. Old Chen still sat behind the cabinet as always, looking through a broken magazine, saw Lin Xiaofan coming in, raised his eyelids, and snorted, Did you hear that you are causing trouble again? Are you against that boy in the Zhang family? Lin Xiaofan was very proud of his shoulders, and took a few books from the bookshelf and placed them on the table. It's nothing, I just reported an academic competition and had fun. Chen, why is your news so clear? Old Chen sneered, put down the magazine, staring at him with a sharp look. Don't put garlic with me. Do you think that competition is an ordinary exam? Tell you that every competition in Xinghui High School may be part of the trial. If you don't stop, play yourself sooner or later. Lin Xiaofan was shocked, but he still looked like he was so rude. Chen, why don't I understand you? What kind of test is not? I'm just an ordinary student. What can I do if I participate in a competition? Old Chen glanced at him and said nothing more. He just took out a yellow book from the drawer and threw it in front of him. Take it and take a look, don't say I didn't remind you. Some things can't be avoided. Lin Xiaofan looked down and saw a few vague words written on the cover of the small book, Star Secret Record. He felt nervous and flipped through several pages and found that what he recorded was a story about the history of the campus, and some things that looked like rules, and words such as all-round trial and tat seal. Although he had long seen similar content from other ancient books, the description in this book is more detailed, and even mentioned that the first aspect of the trial would be based on the competition of knowledge. Chen, this is... Lin Xiaofan raised his head and thought to ask, but found that the old Chen had already carried him over and pretended to be busy sorting out the documents, and he didn't plan to pay attention to him at all. He slammed his head helplessly, stuffed the paper into his bookcase, and decided to go back and study it slowly. In the next few days, Lin Xiaofan began to prepare for the academic competition with low regulation. On the surface, he still looked at the unrestrained and slow look, but he privately read all the related question databases and information. It's not that he wants to win, but that the knowledge competition mentioned in Chen's book made him feel that this competition may not be simple. On the day of the competition, the school's grand ceremony was full of people. In addition to the contestants, there are also many students coming to watch it. Suruoching had occupied the front row early, and saw Lin Xiaofan coming in, and Lima shook his hand at him. Xiaofan, here. Lin Xiaofan smiled, walked over and sat down, and said in a low voice, don't have too much hope, I'm just here to save a few. Don't let me wipe my butt if I get rid of it. Suruoching rolled her eyes. Stop doing this, when did you really lose someone? I still don't believe it. Zhang Haoyan can compare you. Nowhere far away, Zhang Haoyan sat on the other side, staring at Lin Xiaofan with a deep face, his eyes full of enemies. Several followers beside him were also talking privately, and they sneered a few times, obviously intending to see Lin Xiaofan get angry. The competition began quickly, and the topic was as difficult as it was reported. It not only covers many subjects such as mathematics, physics, chemistry, etc., but also covers some interdisciplinary knowledge points that are not only unparalleled. The audience could see that many people could not even understand the topics, and they could only judge who was harmed by the performance of the candidates. Zhang Haoyan is worthy of being a master. His answers are amazing. Almost every question can be answered within the specified time, which has attracted the audience's attention. In contrast, Lin Xiaofan looked much more dull. He wrote it slowly, and occasionally stopped to think for a while, and it seemed like he was being stuck. Suruoching was anxious and muttered in a low voice, why can't this guy exert force? If this continues, he will be crushed by Zhang Haoyan. But what she didn't know was that Lin Xiaofan had already calculated the answers to each question clearly. He deliberately slowed down, just not wanting to be too eye-catching. But as the competition proceeded, he found that some issues became increasingly strange, and even involved some knowledge that did not belong to normal high school areas, such as the interpretation of ancient runes and the lost mathematical deduction methods. He glanced at the source of the topic and found that there was a small word special behind these topics, as if they were specially prepared for some people. It's indeed not simple. Lin Xiaofan said in his heart, his eyes swept past the old man in the audience. The old man was sitting in the corner, looking at his cell phone on the surface, but his eyes kept aiming at him, as if he had known that this would appear. The competition is held to the last round, which is the on-site question-solving cycle. The players need to complete a comprehensive and highly comprehensive question within the specified time and go on stage to explain their ideas. As soon as this topic came out, the whole scene exploded because it was not only difficult, but also involved a completely unfamiliar field, a certain ancient deduction of symbols. Zhang Haoyan even raised an eyebrow, and it was obvious that he had never seen such a thing. Lin Xiaofan looked at the topic with his head down, his eyes slightly changed. He recognized that these symbols were exactly what was mentioned in the Star Secret Record, which was said to be part of the almighty trial to test the participants' comprehensive insights. He hesitated for a second, then picked up the pen and began to quickly write down the problem-solving step. His actions became increasingly scattered, as if he had been familiar with the logic of these symbols for a long time. After a few minutes, the answer was on the paper. When Zhang Haotian went to the stage to talk and explained, he went up first. Although he reluctantly solved some of the answers, his explanation was shaky and obvious that he lacked the foundation. Many people in the audience started talking about private words, thinking that Zhang Haotian might be going to flip this time. Then he drove to Lin Xiaofan. He walked onto the stage and began to explain calmly, from the origin of the symbol to the deduction logic to the final answer. Every step was clearly sorted out, as if he had been prepared long ago. The audience was stunned, and even the teacher of the review committee couldn't help but show a shocked expression. Su Ruoqing even stood up and applauded happily on her face. "Xifan, you are too awesome." Zhang Haotian's face turned dark, his fists were clenched tightly, and his eyes were full of disbelief. He never thought that he would be under pressure from Lin Xiaofan at this scene. The results of the competition came out soon, and Lin Xiaofan won the first place with a slight advantage, while Zhang Haotian ranked second. Although the score difference is not big, for Zhang Haotian, this is undoubtedly a huge blow. At the break, he glared at Lin Xiaofan fiercely and said in a low voice, "You are leaving this time, let's compete next time." Lin Xiaofan just smiled and didn't answer. He knew that this game was just the beginning and the real challenge was still at the back. That night, he returned to the dormitory, flipped through the starring secret record, and found that the part about knowledge competition in the register had already added a line of small words, as if someone had just written it. "The first question has been passed, and the next trial is about to start, and we are ready to face the real exam." Lin Xiaofan looked at the lines of words and his heart sank. He knew that he had been rolled into the whirlpool of the all-round trial, and next, whether it was sports, art or even more strange challenges, he had to face it one by one. And Chen's meaningful eyes also made him feel that behind all this, there might be a bigger secret. At the same time, the lights in the library were still lit. Chen sat behind the cabinet, held his cell phone and passed a number, and said in a low voice, "That kid passed the first link, which was faster than I expected. Are you ready?" A low voice came from the phone. "Don't worry, the next thing will let him know what a true all-round trial is." The old Chen shut up the phone, looked out the window, and a complicated smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. The night at Xinghui High School was a bit strange, and the challenge belonging to Lin Xiaofan just kicked off. On the night of Xinghui High School, the moonlight shone through the sparse clouds in the campus, covering the old buildings with a faint silver tiles. Lin Xiaofan sat in front of the dormitory desk, and the lights on the table radiated faintly, illuminating the yellow star secret record. He gently stroked the new small words with his fingers. "The first question has been passed, the next trial is about to start, ready to face the real exam." His eyes were as quiet as water, and there was a slight hidden in words. Over the past few days, there are more and more discussions about him in the campus. The reverse of the academic competition made him transform from an inconspicuous ordinary student into a hidden boss in many people's mouths. Su Ruoqing asked him every day to ask questions, and Zhang Haotian was looking for trouble everywhere, as if he had to step on him before he could be willing to do so. But Lin Xiaofan knew in his heart that these open things were nothing, and what really made him uneasy was the next trial mentioned in this book. "Xifan, are you not sleeping yet?" The dormitory door was pushed open, and Su Ruoqing's voice came from the door. She walked in with a simple robe and a bottle of milk in her hand, smiling. "I see the lights in your room are still lit. Come and see if you are staying up late and making some secret plans." Lin Xiaofan hurriedly closed the card, stuffed it into the drawer, and turned around and smiled. "There is no secret plan, it's just a book. I'll have a physical education test tomorrow. I have to prepare in advance so as not to drag my back." Su Ruoqing rolled her eyes and stuffed the milk into his hands. "If you don't have this set, will the sports test be difficult for you? I've still remembered the last time I was in the basketball court. Don't hide it." "What's wrong with me?" Lin Xiaofan took the milk, took a sip, and avoided her gaze. "It's nothing, Ruoqing, you're thinking too much. I'm just an ordinary person, what secret can I have?" Watching stared at him for a while, and saw that he was still like a salty person, and sighed, "Okay, I won't force you if you don't say it. But remember, no matter what you have, I'm here, don't carry it." Lin Xiaofan felt warm in his heart and he pointed a little, "I understand, Miss Su, go back to bed tightly, don't come from tomorrow." Watching hummed and turned away. The moment he closed the door, Lin Xiaofan's smile gradually disappeared. He took out the book again, his eyes falling on the lines of small words again. For some reason, he always thought that the next trial would be more difficult than the academic competition, and might even involve something that he could not control. The next day, the physical education test arrived as scheduled. At the scene, the students gathered together in 3 or 3, some were warm and some were chatting. Lin Xiaofan stood by the crowd, politely like a passerby. Watching ran over early and pulled his arm and said excitedly, "Xiaofan, today is a good opportunity. That guy Zhang Haoyan must show off his muscles again. Don't let him get hurt." Lin Xiaofan smiled helplessly, "I can just get over it, what are you going to risk? You should care more about yourself, don't just run 800 meters and panting like something." Watching curled her lips and was about to turn around, but she heard a loud noise coming from nowhere. Zhang Haoyan walked over with a few school teams in a sports outfit, looked around with a hurried look, and finally his eyes closed on Lin Xiaofan. He sneered and said loudly, "Lin Xiaofan, don't say anything good today. I want to see, besides solving some problems, what other abilities can you have?" When the students around heard this, they turned around and saw that the atmosphere on the playground suddenly became hot. Lin Xiaofan ignored him and just lowered his head and adjusted the straps of his sports shoes, as if he had never heard of them at all. Watching was a little anxious and said in a low voice, "Xifan, this guy is coming to make trouble again. Are you really not going to fight back? What are you going to fight? Sports tests are not a competition. Just get over it." Lin Xiaofan was calm and stood up and clapped his hands, "Let's go, you should be hot." Test items include sprinting, long running, jumping and shooting, which are not difficult for most mathematicians, but it is not easy to get high scores. Zhang Haoyan is worthy of being the main force of the school team. Every project shows that he has a lot of game blades, which has attracted a lot of applause from the surrounding area. Lin Xiaofan is a middle level and straight, and his speed is neither fast nor slow. His results are just stuck above the passing line, which looks inconspicuous. Watching looked at her eyebrows and couldn't help but complain, "Xiaofan, are you so low-key, right? You can obviously run faster, why do you have to wear an ordinary person?" Lin Xiaofan smiled and wiped the sweat from his head, "I'm afraid of being too eye-catching and being seen by people as monsters. Just get off the hook, don't think too much." But at this moment, the last project, the investment, came to a point. The test ball of practical heart was replaced by a heavier version. The weight was far beyond the normal standard. Zhang Haoyan tried to throw it away and could not reach the passing line. The coach looked at the equipment with his eyebrows and muttered in his mouth, "Who replaced the ball? It's so scattered." Students discussed the issue, and many people began to complain, thinking that this project could not be completed at all. Zhang Haoyan snorted coldly, turned to Lin Xiaofan, and said with a harsh slightest saying, "Why, you can't even throw out this weight? Then don't let anyone see you, just give up your rights." Lin Xiaofan glanced at him, and without saying a word, he walked silently to the castle area and picked up the heavy ball of real heart. He lowered his head and weighed it, his eyes slightly changed. Not only was this ball heavy, but there were some small runes engraved on the surface, like some ancient mark. He was shocked and he thought of the test content mentioned in the starring secret record. Is this so-called next trial? "Xiaofan, be careful, don't be strong." Watching shouted from the side, her language full of concern. Lin Xiaofan smiled at her, then took a deep breath and adjusted his posture. His actions didn't seem professional, but when his arm was slammed and his mind ball ran out, everyone was stunned. The ball flew out with a perfect arc line, far beyond the passing line, even farther than the distance Zhang Haoyan threw with a normal ball. When landing, a small piece of dust scattered on the operating field, and a deep bang sounded. The whole scene was calm for a second, and then a little startled. Su Ruoqing jumped up and shouted excitedly, "Xifan, you are so awesome! Can you throw this out?" Zhang Haoyan's face was blue, his lips were tight and his eyes were full of disbelief. He gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, "This guy is indeed a problem." Lin Xiaofan patted the ashes on his hand, as if he had not heard the surrounding discussions. He turned around and walked back to Su Ruoqing and said in a low voice, "Let's go, the test is over, there is nothing good to look at." But he was not at all relieved. It was no coincidence that the runes on the real mind ball just now. He was almost certain that this was the second aspect of the all-round trial, the physical fitness test. What made him even more uneasy was that he noticed that the old Chen was standing there in the coaching table far away, staring at him with his eyes curled up, and a meaningful smile was still hanging on the corner of his mouth. That night, Lin Xiaofan returned to the dormitory and opened the star tie record. Sure enough, he found that another line of words was added to the register. The second line has been passed, the strength test has been completed, and the next line will test the spirituality in creation. He looked at the lines with his eyebrows tightly locked. Spirit and creation? What kind of challenge will this be? In the next few days, the campus began to prepare the annual art festival, with the theme of creation and expression. Each class needs to prepare a collective program covering many aspects such as music, dance, painting, etc. Su Ruoqing happily pulled Lin Xiaofan to sign up for the event, saying that she wanted to help him design the stage design and background painting. "Xiaofan, your brain is so wise, please think about what to do. Zhang Haoyan and his team have already started training. I heard that I asked the professional teacher to guide him. We can't let it go." Su Ruoqing looked at him expectantly, holding a bunch of design sketches in her hand. Lin Xiaofan wanted to recommend it, but looking at her twin shiny eyes, he still pointed, "Okay, I'll try it. But let me say first, I won't dance, don't expect me to go on stage." Su Ruoqing smiled as if she had stolen honey. "Don't worry, just hand over the dance style and background to you, I'm going to dance." However, Lin Xiaofan had a hidden premonition in his heart that this art festival may not be related to the trial. Sure enough, during the preparation process, he discovered that in the painting materials provided by the school, there was a set of materials containing runes similar to those on the real sphere. He tried to use these materials to draw a background picture, and a strange light suddenly appeared on the painting, as if some kind of energy was activated. "This is..." Lin Xiaofan stared at the painting, his heart was shocked. He immediately opened the Star Secret record and found that the third test of spirit and creation requires art to awaken the inner power and integrate it into the work to influence the viewer's emotions. On the day of the art festival, there were no private seats in the campus ceremony. The programs in Zhang Haoyan and his class were indeed full of enthusiasm, and the dance arrangements were like models, which won the applause. When he arrived at Su Ruoqing and his team, the stage design background designed by Lin Xiaofan was surprised by the whole audience as soon as it appeared. The painting not only has a slim color, but also scatters a calm and refreshing atmosphere. It is paired with the dance led by Su Ruoqing, and the effect is simply bursting. After the performance, the sound of the palm was endless. Su Ruoqing ran off the stage excitedly and hugged Lin Xiaofan. "Xiaofan, you are too terrible. How is this background painted? It feels like you are so hot and bloody." Lin Xiaofan smiled, without much explanation, but just said in a low voice, "You dance well, we haven't lost anyone this time." But he knew in his heart that this painting could have such an effect entirely because of the power of the experiment. He glanced at the old man in the audience and found that the old man was pointing at him, his eyes full of approval. That night, a new word appeared on the Star Secret record. The third link has been passed, the spiritual trial has been completed, and the final trial is about to open, and you are ready to face the taboo seal. Lin Xiaofan looked at the lines of words, and his heartbeat couldn't help but speed up. He knew that the real challenge was finally here. A few days later, the school suddenly announced that it would hold a special event in the old library deep in the campus, called History Exploration Night, and only a few students were invited to participate. When Lin Xiaofan received the invitation letter, he had an answer in his heart. This is the stage for the ultimate trial. That night, there was a breath of old breath in the air in the old library. Under the dim light, more than a dozen students stood in the building, looking a little uneasy. As the event guide, Chen stood in front and said in a low voice, "Tonight, you will explore the true secrets of Xinghui High School. Remember, don't be surprised no matter what you see." Lin Xiaofan stood in the crowd, his eyes swept around, and found that Zhang Haoyan and Su Ruoqing were also on the scene. Su Ruoqing said in a low voice, "Xifan, why is this activity so strange? I'm a little scared." "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Lin Xiaofan comforted her in a low voice, and clenched his fists at the same time. He knew that this was not only the last part of the trial, but also the moment when the school taboo seal was unveiled. As the old Chen led the people deep into the underground of the library, a stone door full of runes appeared in front of everyone. The stone door emitted a cold breath, as if it was sealed with something terrifying. The old Chen turned his head and looked at Lin Xiaofan and said heavily, "Boy, this is the final exam. If you unveil the seal, you will become a true almighty god, but you will also bear the corresponding responsibilities. Are you ready?" Lin Xiaofan took a deep breath and clicked a little. He walked to the stone gate, pressed his palm on the rune, and closed his eyes and felt the ancient power. There are countless pictures in his brain, the secrets of the family, the history of the campus, and his talent that he has hidden for many years. As he opened his eyes quietly, the stone door opened slowly, and a dazzling light shot out, illuminating the entire basement. Su Ruoqing was shocked, and Zhang Haoyan was shocked and murmured, What is this?" Lin Xiaofan turned his head and looked at them, his voice calmly carrying an unquestionable determination, "This is the truth of Xinghui High School and my destiny. You will leave here and hand it over to me." In the light, a huge talisman appeared, and countless ancient words flowed in the air, like trying to test Lin Xiaofan's final will. He walked into the talisman step by step, recalling the past points in his brain, Su Ruoqing's smile, Lao Chen's guidance, and his hidden piercing again and again. Finally, he stretched out his hand and touched the core of the talisman. A powerful energy instantly penetrated into his body. "Tao seal, unlock." With his humble shout, the talisman shattered, the light dissipated, and the basement returned to its tranquility. Lin Xiaofan stood there, calming down, and his eyes became more calm and confident. He knew that he had finally realized the omnipotence of God, and behind all this, there were more secrets waiting for him to explore. Old Chen walked up, patted his shoulder, and said in a low voice, "Boy, you did a good job. But this is just the beginning. The people from the association will come to you soon and be prepared for a bigger challenge." Lin Xiaofan clicked the head and turned to look at Su Ruoqing and Zhang Haoyan. Su Ruoqing's eyes were filled with shock and grief, while Zhang Haoyan's expression was complicated and difficult to describe. He smiled and said lightly, "Let's go, let's talk about it later. There are still a lot of things waiting for us outside." Under the moonlight, the figures of several people continued to go away, and the stone door of the old library closed again, as if it had never been opened. But Lin Xiaofan knew in his heart that behind this door, there were still countless unknown challenges waiting for him. And he finally made preparations to welcome everything.